Modern Singapore is internationally recognized for its rapid economic progress and relative social harmony. Western leaders have labeled this phenomenon as Singaporean exceptionalism, describing Singapore as being positively different from the rest of the Southeast Asian region, politically and economically. Its success is largely attributed to strict policies under the one-party rule system, which has dominated the political landscape of Singapore for the past 5 decades. By establishing state control over burials, the Singapore government has shaped Singaporeans' attitudes towards the state of their bodies after death. Graveyards used to dot the Singapore landscape, and most of the high-rise buildings are actually built upon exhumed graveyards. Cremation has been promoted as the most cost-effective and the most preferred practice alternative to burials, as it requires less procedures and also saves more land space. In addition, the government has limited the number of cemeteries available for burial. These events raise some questions. Has economic progress undermined culture and traditions, specifically towards burials? And has it essentially pushed aside space for the dead, both literally and figuratively? The Bukit Brown controversy effectively reflects this issue. Plans by the government to exhume graves were faced with local protests in Raleigh to preserve the heritage represented by the cemetery. Singaporeans who felt that there is a need to redefine the definition of this so-called progress rejected the need to exhume these graves for land to build roads and housing estates.
We are trying to raise awareness, we're doing research and trying to bring up more salient points that may not be taught in history books and textbooks. There are people who are very enthusiastic. They've come up to us, they want to write letters, petitions, they have themselves given lectures and led their own tours here.
Singaporeans still seem to hold some regard for burial traditions, and are starting to realize the erosion of culture and tradition at the expense of progress. But how much can Singaporeans do to change their own fate? In addition, despite their respect for their past traditions, are they even concerned about continuing them for themselves? There is currently only one cemetery left, the Choa Chu Kang Cemetery. Here, burial slots are allocated and standardized. They are divided into their different religious groups and are all to be exhumed within 15 years. What is interesting, however, are the gravestones. The gravestones are all different, according to ethnic group and religion, and some are even customized to their own preferences. CCK Marble is one of the most established companies dealing with tombstones, urns, and monuments. We spoke to Darren, the one in charge of this business, to find out more about this industry.
Yeah, hi, I'm Darren from CCK Marble, and we are major in doing tombstones and memorials stuff for deceased. In the olden days itself, it was like tombstones itself stand for almost 80 to 85% of our sales, and then cremation itself maybe 10 to 5%. But now itself it's basically a switch in the way that cremation itself stands for almost 85 to 90%, and the tombstone business itself stands for like 10 to 15%. 10, 20 years ago, the making of the tombstone itself is rather simple and standard. So everyone had the same design. Everyone basically had the same design itself throughout the whole cemetery. So I was thinking that why not have this tombstone that is customized based on the deceased preference, the hobby, what he likes, and then that will actually portray this another kind of feel itself to the family members. We can basically do anything according to the deceased preference. We have done like bass, amplifier, we've done piano, we've done car as well, car model as well. Yeah.
It seems that Singaporeans are able to look for ways, however minute, to express their agency and individuality. In this case, through the customization of gravestones, it's interesting how before we could see the person's identity by how and where they were buried. It was a collective identity expressing the group relations and social power. Now that we don't have such options, it's more about expressing individuality through their gravestone. It has evolved into something more personal and individual. Hence, Darren's work is revolutionary. Despite having commodified the process of making the gravestone, Darren's business has actually given more leverage and space for Singaporeans to exercise their agency in preserving their culture. But what about the majority who are not buried? We have asked several Singaporeans on how they feel about these traditions and customs, and whether they care about their bodies when they pass. Let's have a look at what they have to say.
客家人我们也是算是汉人啦，所以呢，按照我们汉人的基本风俗呢，应该还是入土为安。
I think my family tradition is to get married.
My grandparents, my grandfathers are buried.
It's my family's tradition to get buried.
I've never actually been to a funeral before, so I am not sure if we usually get cremated. Yeah.
All have been cremated except my great-grandparents who have been buried.
以前是根据我知道是并没有并不流行了所谓火化了火化可能是现代的发展的需求我们发现就是火化比较卫生比较省地方应该是最近的这种新的趋势按照旧的趋势我想还是应该是土葬然后放那个骨骸
I would say not really, because the Singapore government has a lot of controls over the burial procedures in Singapore.
I think based on their religion, they would think differently. There's a large population that's Buddhist and Taoist, so maybe the rituals do matter. But I think nowadays most people are cremated because they cannot afford to pay for the burial.
There's no more tradition because of lack of space, so we have to cremate instead of bury.
I think the general consensus is that we will be cremated because I think that's the most common way of dealing with the body after you die, in Singapore at least.
其实客家的传统是包括了非常多的东西，纯粹从这个是火化还是不是火化，我觉得是不会影响我们的传统其实客家的传统就是应变所以呢，来到新加坡这个地小人多的国家，我们变成火葬，我觉得是理所当然的。
Actually, I don't really care. You can donate all my organs. I don't care.
Whatever's most cost effective for my family. So if they want to bury me, then it's cool. But if they want to cremate me, I'm also cool with it.
Actually, I think whatever is the cheapest would be the best. Because I don't want people to come back and look at my grave or something like that. Go on and live your life, don't think about the past.
I don't think the rituals, the dying process is really important to me. I think if I go to the afterlife, then I think that's about it. It does not really matter on how am I gonna process from life to death. Yeah, and it's also not based on my religion that I must be buried. So it's not necessary.
Why do most Singaporeans just agree to cremation? Even though burials are practiced in the past, many cultures and religions are in actual fact not very strict about this issue, making it easy for people to not consider burials altogether when the Singaporean government started exhumations, limiting burial plots and encouraging cremation. Government policies against burials can be seen to have eroded culture and traditions, but we argue that instead, this is simply an evolution of culture to include economic pragmatism. After all, culture and traditions are redefined by every generation, and burial practices have now simply been rendered unimportant given the present circumstances and priorities. However, questions do still remain. In light of this evolution of culture, do past traditions truly not matter anymore? Are dead people irrelevant to the present day, and are burial traditions simply just necessary sacrifices to ensure economic progress? Are we all meant to be forgotten in the end? Unimportant to the rest of the world? As we continue to look at funeral practices in Singapore and grapple with these questions with perhaps no answers, one conclusion can still be made. As all Singaporeans, regardless of ethnic group or religion, will probably be cremated in the near future. Perhaps, cremation has now become part of Singaporean culture and part of what it means to be Singaporean.
At the moment, I would like for it to be more personalized, just to give. I would like it to be more personalized, just so there's that sense of my being that's being retained in some senses. So yes.
I think I would have it representing who I was, because it would be like a legacy to leave to my children and my grandchildren, so they would be able to get a feel of what kind of a person I was, rather than me just tradition and just following what my parents would have done.
I think it doesn't really matter. and don't want my family to spend money in getting a very nice plaque or anything. I think just something simple that maybe just one line of who I am to them, and I think that's enough.
That's a tough one. I'm not thinking of that right now at this moment. But I'll think of something that is better for people to actually remember me when they see the gravestone.